An employee clicks once. The AI meter may record 6 separate charges. On the screen, it looks like one request. Behind the screen, the billing system sees an entire workflow. That is why a company can watch its AI budget keep climbing even when it has not hired a single additional employee. The pricing unit is changing. Software used to be priced around people. AI is increasingly priced around work. And once that happens, headcount alone can no longer predict the final bill. The most important question is no longer, how much does one credit cost? It is, who defines a unit of work? Who counts it? And who has the power to stop the meter? For years, enterprise software budgeting was relatively simple. The seat was the meter. If you knew how many employees needed access, you bought roughly that many licenses and negotiated an annual contract. The company could usually estimate the cost before people started using the product. It was a little like renting an apartment. You paid the rent, got the keys, and used the space. AI agents are starting to look more like a taxi. Buying the license may only get you into the car. The final bill depends on how far the agent travels, how many stops it makes, which systems it visits, and whether it has to turn around and try the route again. In an AI workflow, searches, retrievals, tool calls, validations, and retries are the mileage, the stops, and the detours. A user may ask for one customer summary, but the agent may have to search a database, pull account history, read recent emails, call the CRM, generate the summary, check the output, update a record, and then repeat part of the process because the first result was incomplete. The employee sees one answer. The meter may see 8 actions. Platforms do not all count those actions in exactly the same way. Depending on the product, plan, and system configuration, generating a response, calling a tool, accessing company data, or completing an action may consume different amounts of usage. Some activity may be bundled into a subscription. Some may be covered by prepaid credits. Some may be metered separately. But the budget problem is the same. One request can contain many billable steps. Now scale that across a company. Imagine 100 sales representatives. Each of them asks an AI agent to prepare 20 customer summaries per day. To the employees, that looks like 2,000 requests. But suppose each summary requires 4 metered actions. The billing system now sees 8,000 actions. That does not automatically mean the dollar bill is exactly 4 times higher. Different actions may have different rates, and some may be included in a package. But it does reveal the larger problem. Employee count no longer tells you how much AI work is actually being consumed. The route matters more than the number of passengers, and that is where AI budgeting becomes difficult. When a company buys an agent, it is not just buying access to software, it is buying a workflow. 2 departments can have the same number of employees and produce completely different usage patterns. One department may use an agent to answer simple internal questions. Another may connect it to support tickets, invoices, customer records, approval systems, and payment tools. The headcount is identical. The path behind the screen is not. So the budgeting question shifts. It is no longer just, how many people need the software? It becomes, how many measurable actions does this workflow create? That also means workflow design is now a financial decision. Consider 2 companies using AI to produce the same customer summary. At the first company, the workflow does 3 things. Read the customer record, generate the summary, and save the result. At the second company, the workflow searches a database, reads recent email, calls the CRM, checks the result, updates the customer record, verifies the update, and then runs again because the answer was incomplete. The employee receives the same summary. The customer sees the same outcome. But one workflow took 3 steps, while the other took 7. The most expensive AI system may not be using the most expensive model. It may simply be taking the messiest route. That is why the pricing model may tell you more about budget risk than the product name. When your company evaluates an AI tool, ask how it charges. Is it priced by seat, message, token, credit, action, or some combination of them? Action-based pricing is not automatically bad. The old seat model created plenty of waste. Companies often paid for thousands of licenses that employees barely used. For a small team or a limited pilot, paying only when the AI actually performs work may be more efficient. The problem is not that usage changes. The problem is whether the buyer can see the route clearly enough to control that usage before the budget gets away from them. Before signing the next AI agent contract, a company should be able to answer 3 questions. First, what exactly counts as a billable event? Second, what does a complete business outcome cost? Third, what mechanism can stop the meter? Take a customer refund. When an agent processes that refund, which steps are billable? Does reading the refund policy count? Does looking up the order count? Does calling the payment tool count? If the payment fails and the agent retries, does the retry count again? Those questions matter more than the price of a single credit. Do not ask only, how much is one credit? Ask, how many credits does a normal refund require? Then ask how many an unusual refund requires. Then multiply that across 10,000 refunds per day. That is how a tiny unit price becomes a major operating expense. The next question is, what happens when the workflow goes wrong? Can the company limit retries? Can it pause one unusually expensive workflow without shutting down everything else? Can finance see consumption by department, task, and business outcome? Or does everyone have to wait until the end-of-month invoice to discover what happened? Platforms such as Microsoft and Salesforce have been adding usage reports, cost estimates, and consumption dashboards. Those tools are useful, but they also reveal a deeper shift. The company selling the billing unit may also define that unit, count that unit, and build the dashboard that explains it. That does not mean the dashboard is wrong. It means the buyer needs an independent cost control discipline. Track the workflow. Test the workflow. Set limits on the workflow. Compare the cost of completing a business outcome, not just the price of one token, one credit, or one action. Seat-based pricing is not going to disappear. The likely future is a hybrid model. A subscription fee to provide access, plus usage charges for the work the AI performs. But the center of gravity is moving. The seat determines who is allowed in. The action meter determines what happens after they enter. As agents take on more real work, that second layer becomes more important. Vendors will increasingly influence how digital work is broken into actions, how those actions are measured, and how each one is priced. That is where pricing power begins to shift. Whoever defines the unit of work gets closer to controlling the final bill. So the next time an AI agent demo looks effortless, do not look only at the result on the screen. Ask what happened behind it. How many steps were required? How many of those steps became billable usage? What happens when the workflow scales from 1 employee to 1,000? And who controls the meter when it does? Because the most dangerous number may not be the number of employees using the agent, it may be the number of actions the agent creates for every employee. One click can become a chain, one request can become a workflow, and one workflow can become thousands of billable actions. If you want to understand the AI business model before it shows up in your company's budget, subscribe and tell me in the comments, is pay-per-action pricing fair, or does it give vendors too much control over the final bill? The headline is temporary, the value shift is not.